She was fired for being kind to a customer. But the next day, she walked back in as the new boss. Megan wasn't someone who looked for drama. She never had been. She wasn't the type to cause problems or start fights. She believed in showing up on time, doing her job, and being nice to people. That's how she was raised. Work hard, respect others, and keep quiet when things got messy. But sometimes, doing the right thing brings trouble. And she was about to learn that the hard way. For almost 3 years, the Lancaster Grill felt like home. It wasn't a fancy place, just a small diner on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, right between a gas station and a laundromat. It was where truck drivers stopped for coffee, where families came for Sunday breakfast, and where the servers knew your favorite order before they even remembered your name. It wasn't the kind of job people dreamed about. The hours were long, the pay was low, and the managers didn't really care. But Megan stayed. She had bills to pay. Her rent was too high for a small one-bedroom apartment, and her younger brother Evan was in college. He didn't know she helped pay for his books and groceries when their mom couldn't. She never told him, just sent what she could when she could. That's why she took on extra shifts. That's why she dealt with rude customers. And coworkers who acted like being nice made her weak. She had seen things at that diner that made her feel sick. Beth, one of the older waitresses, would treat some customers like they weren't even there, while laughing and flirting with others. Jason, a newer server, avoided certain tables completely. The mood of the whole restaurant changed, depending on who walked in. It wasn't just about who had money. If a man came in wearing a suit, he got smiles and small talk. But a working man in old clothes got rush service. And if someone looked like they wouldn't leave a tip, some staff wouldn't even try. Megan hated it. But speaking up was an option. She'd learned that before. A few months back, she had made a simple comment about a table that had been waiting too long, while Beth stood around scrolling on her phone. Beth looked right at her and said, "You don't get paid extra for being a saint, Megan." That was the rule there. Go along with it or stay quiet. So Megan stayed quiet until that one night. And after that night, everything changed. It was a slow Wednesday evening. The dinner rush was over. Megan didn't mind slow nights. Fewer customers meant fewer problems. Less mess. Fewer fake smiles from coworkers, who only acted friendly when it helped them. She was behind the counter, refilling the sugar jars, when the bell above the door rang. An older black man walked in. His clothes were clean but a little worn. Nothing fancy, just a simple button-up shirt and slacks. He walked in quietly but with confidence. Still, there was a pause in his step, a brief scan of the room before he moved forward. Megan noticed. She'd seen it before. That look from customers who already knew what kind of welcome they might or might not get. And sure enough, Beth didn't even lift her head from her phone. Jason, who was laughing with another server, glanced at the man, made quick eye contact, then went right back to his joke. No greeting. No welcome to Lancaster Grill. Just silence. Megan felt it like a heavy cloud. It wasn't an accident. Her coworkers had made a choice. And for a moment, Megan thought about staying out of it. It would be easier. It always was. But then she looked at the man again, the way he stood there, waiting, as if hoping, just once, someone might treat him right. So Megan made her choice. She wiped her hands on a napkin, grabbed a menu, and walked right over. "Evening, sir," she said warmly. "Just you tonight?" The man looked her in the eye, and his face softened. "Yes, ma'am," he said, steady and calm. Megan smiled and pointed to an open booth by the window. "Follow me. This one okay?" "Perfectly fine," he replied. As he sat down, she handed him the menu and pulled a pen from behind her ear. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" "Coffee," he said. "Black." Coming right up. Megan moved quickly, pouring him a fresh cup herself. She could feel Beth watching her. Jason, too, but she didn't look back. She set the coffee down in front of him. He looked around the diner, then back at her. "You the only one working tonight?" His voice was quiet, just loud enough for her to hear. Megan knew what he meant. She glanced toward Beth and Jason, who were now whispering and smirking at each other. Feels like it sometimes, she said. That made him chuckle. He opened the menu and glanced over the options. What's good here? Megan thought for a moment. Depends on what you're in the mood for. If you want something hearty, the pot roast is always fresh. But if you want my favorite, the grilled salmon is really good. He raised an eyebrow. That's so. She nodded. Promise you won't regret it. He gave a small, real smile. Salmon it is. Megan wrote it down. Great choice. As she walked back to the kitchen, she heard Beth mutter, just loud enough, she's wasting her time. Megan clenched her jaw, but kept walking. When she returned with a coffee refill, the air felt different. It was subtle, but she felt it. Beth's eyes narrowing. Jason watching the booth, like he was waiting for Megan to mess up. Even Tom, the manager, peeked out his office, glanced around, then stepped back in. Megan had a feeling she just put a target on her back, but she wouldn't realize how bad it was until the next morning. Megan hardly slept that night. Something about Beth's whisper, Jason's smirk, and the manager's quick peek from his office gave her a bad feeling, but she told herself maybe she was just imagining it. She hadn't done anything wrong. In fact, she had done exactly what a good waitress should do. She served a customer with respect. So why did her stomach feel sick? As she pulled into the Lancaster Grill parking lot the next morning, the air was cool. The sun was just starting to rise over the rooftops. As she grabbed her apron from the passenger seat and tossed it over her shoulder, a few cars were already in the lot. One of them was Tom's. Megan stepped inside, expecting things to be like usual. Beth and Jason chatting near the counter. The kitchen crew getting ready for breakfast. The radio playing softly in the background. But something wasn't right. Beth wasn't leaning against the counter like she normally did. Jason wasn't making coffee or joking around with the cooks. Instead, both of them were just standing there, watching her. Beth had a sneaky little smile. Jason stood with his arms crossed. Neither of them said a word. Megan's hand gripped her apron a little tighter. Then came the creak of a door opening. Tom, he stood in the office doorway, looking at her like he'd been waiting for this moment. Megan, he said flatly, come with me. Her stomach dropped. Tom didn't explain. He just turned and walked back into his office. Megan swallowed hard. She could feel Beth and Jason still staring at her. As she made her way toward the back, she took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and stepped inside. The office was small and messy. The desk was covered in papers and stained coffee cups. A file sat open in front of Tom, but he wasn't looking at it. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, took a breath, and said, "We're letting you go." The words hit her like a punch. Megan blinked, confused, trying to understand what she had just heard. "What?" she asked. Tom didn't change his expression. "It's not working out." Her heart pounded. "Not working out?" she repeated, laughing bitterly. "I've been here almost 3 years. I've never missed a shift, never been late." Tom sighed through his nose, already tired of the conversation. "It's a decision we've made," he said. Megan understood what that meant. Her throat tightened. "This is because of last night, isn't it?" Tom didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said it all. Megan felt her face grow hot. "So I get fired for doing my job?" she asked. Tom drummed his fingers on the desk. "You can pick up your final paycheck next week." That was it. No warning. No reason. Just out. Megan clenched her fists, but she knew arguing wouldn't change anything. She untied her apron and set it down on a chair. At the door, she paused. She made herself look back at him. "You know this isn't right," she said quietly. Tom didn't even blink. Megan shook her head and walked out. Beth was still by the counter when Megan returned to the main dining room, that same smug look on her face. Jason was pretending to wipe a table, but his grin gave him away. They had been waiting for this. Megan's cheeks burned, not from shame, but from anger. She wanted to say something, to call them out, to ask how they could be so cold. But she didn't. She wouldn't give them that. She held her head high, walked past without a word, and pushed through the doors into the cold morning air. For the first time in 3 years, she had no job, no paycheck, no plan. She got into her car, slammed the door, and gripped the steering wheel so hard. Her knuckles turned white. Her breathing was short and shaky. How would she pay rent? How could she help Evan with groceries now? Her phone buzzed. She ignored it at first, staring blankly through the windshield, her thoughts racing. Then she glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She hesitated, then picked up with a shaky hand. Hello. A deep voice answered, calm and familiar. Megan? This is Richard Lawson. She frowned. I'm sorry, who? The man you served last night at Lancaster Grill. Her breath caught. She sat up straighter. Oh, yes, sir. How can I help you? There was a pause. Then Richard said, I heard what happened. Megan's stomach turned. Of course he had. Word spread fast in places like that diner. Yeah. Well, she said with a dry laugh. Guess I should have just ignored you like everyone else. Richard's next words made her go still. That's exactly why I'm calling. Because this wasn't the end of Megan's story. It was a beginning. She gripped the phone tighter. She had no idea why Richard Lawson, just another customer, or so she thought, was calling her the morning after she got fired. Her heart pounded as she straightened in her seat. I'm sorry, what do you mean? She asked. There was another pause. Then Richard replied, his voice calm and clear. I wasn't just there for dinner last night, Megan. I was there to see how my employees treat people. Megan blinked. Your employees? I own Lancaster Grill, Richard said. For a second, the words didn't make sense. She just sat there, frozen, her breath caught between shock and disbelief. I'm sorry, what? Megan finally managed to say. You heard me, Richard replied. Megan rubbed her fingers against her temple. So, you're saying you own the place? Yes. And last night, I was checking in, Richard said. I like to visit my restaurants without telling anyone. No warnings. No formal reviews. Just me as a regular customer. It's the best way to see how things really are. Megan's chest felt tight. And what did you find out? Richard sighed. That I've got a serious problem with my staff. Megan gave a dry, bitter laugh. Yeah, no kidding. There was a brief pause. Then Richard asked, How long have you worked there? Almost 3 years, she said. 3 years. Never missed a shift. Never showed up late. I keep my head down, do my job, and treat people like they matter. She exhaled slowly, her voice tinged with frustration. But I guess that was enough to get me fired. That's exactly why I'm calling, Richard said. Megan frowned. I don't understand. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I let them fire you on purpose. Her stomach sank. You what? I needed to see what they'd do, Richard explained. I had to find out if this was just bad service or something deeper. Now I know. Megan shook her head. So you let them throw me out just to prove a point? I know it wasn't fair, Richard admitted. But now I know exactly who I can't trust. To run my business the right way. Megan's heart was pounding. And what does that mean for me? Richard's tone changed. It was firmer now, almost like a leader giving orders. It means I need someone I can trust, he said. Someone who knows what fairness really looks like. Someone who doesn't treat people differently, based on their own bias. Megan was still unsure. I don't see what this has to do with me. Richard's next words stopped her cold. I want you to come back, he said. As the new manager. Megan froze. Her mind raced, trying to process what she just heard. I what? You heard me, Richard said. I fired your manager this morning. Tom's out. Megan's jaw dropped. Beth and Jason were going to lose their minds. I know this is sudden, Richard continued, but I don't want anyone else taking over. You get what matters in a workplace. You treat people right. That's exactly what Lancaster Grill needs. Megan swallowed hard. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can, Richard said firmly. And you should. She stared out through the windshield, her thoughts spinning. Less than a day ago, she'd been kicked out like she didn't matter. And now she was being offered the exact job of the man who fired her. She took a deep breath. What do you say? Richard asked. Megan paused. She could still hear Beth's cruel voice, Jason's smug face, Tom's cold dismissal. They had counted her out, thought they got rid of her for good. But now she had a chance to be the change they never saw coming. Megan lifted her chin, gripping the phone just a bit tighter. I'll do it, she said. Richard let out a satisfied breath. Good. Be there tomorrow morning. You start at 8. Megan nodded, even though he couldn't see her. I'll be there. She hung up the phone and sat quietly for a moment. Her hands still gripped the steering wheel. As it all sank in, yesterday, she walked out of Lancaster Grill with nothing. Tomorrow, she would walk back in as the boss. And this time, she wasn't going to play nice. Megan stood outside Lancaster Grill, her bag slung over her shoulder. The morning air was crisp and cold, but she barely noticed. She'd been thinking about this moment all night. Yesterday, she walked out of this place with no job, no answers, and no respect. Today, she was stepping back in, with something Beth, Jason, and Tom never thought she'd have: power. She took a deep breath, pulled her shoulders back, and walked inside. The smell of fresh coffee and frying bacon filled the air, just like it always had. Customers sat in booths, forks tapping plates, their voices blending with the soft music on the radio. No one noticed her at first. Then Beth turned from the counter and froze in place. Jason, who had been laughing with a busboy, caught sight of her too. His mouth snapped shut mid-sentence. A flash of confusion, or was it fear, crossed his face. It was almost perfect. Megan let the silence stretch for just a moment, just long enough to make them uncomfortable, then walked to the counter and set her bag down with purpose. Beth found her voice first. She scoffed and crossed her arms. What the hell are you doing here? Megan tilted her head slightly. You'll find out soon enough. Beth's smirk faded. Before she could reply, a door opened at the back of the restaurant. Tom stepped out of the office, already annoyed and flipping through some papers. Beth, I need you to. Then he saw Megan. He stopped. His whole body stiffened. His eyes darted from Megan to Beth to Jason, trying to figure out what was happening. Megan, he said slowly, you don't work here anymore. Megan smiled, cool and calm. Actually, she said, I do. Tom blinked. What? Then another voice stepped in, cut him off. I believe I can clear that up. Every head in the diner turned. Richard Lawson walked in, calm as ever, his hands tucked in the pockets of his sleek coat. He looked around the room, slowly, until his eyes landed on Tom. Beth's face went pale. Jason looked like he wanted to disappear. Tom opened his mouth to speak, then shut it again. Richard stopped beside Megan and turned to face the staff. His voice was calm and steady, but carried real authority. As of this morning, there have been some changes. To management here at Lancaster Grill, he said, effective immediately, Tom, your position is terminated. Beth gasped. Jason looked like he'd just been punched. Tom's face turned red with anger. Wait a damn minute. No. Richard cut him off. I've already heard more than enough from you. Tom's mouth snapped shut. Megan almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Richard turned back to the rest of the team. Some of you might be wondering what's going on. So let me make it simple. Last night, I came here as a regular customer. He paused, letting that sink in, and what I saw was unacceptable. No one dared to speak. Richard pointed at Megan. This woman was the only employee who treated me with basic respect, the only one who did her job the way it's supposed to be done. He turned back to the staff, his expression tightening. The rest of you, some ignore me completely, some clearly didn't want to serve me at all. That ends today. The silence in the restaurant grew heavier. Then Richard looked back at Megan. Megan is your new manager. Beth's jaw dropped. Jason clenched his teeth. A young busboy near the kitchen looked like he wanted to cheer. Megan allowed herself a real smile. She turned toward Beth and Jason, still frozen in shock, and leaned casually on the counter. "Well," she said lightly, "this is a little awkward." Beth's face twisted. "You," she snapped, looking at Richard. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," Richard replied. "If you don't like it, you're free to leave." Beth's mouth shut tight. She wasn't dumb. She knew leaving meant no paycheck. And Beth liked her paycheck. Jason, on the other hand, wasn't that smart. "This is bull." "You're welcome to quit too," Richard interrupted. Jason froze. His mouth opened, then closed, like he was trying to figure out if it was worth it. Beth shot Megan a deadly glare. Megan just smiled. "Looks like we all have some adjusting to do," she said cheerfully. "So let's get to work." Beth stormed off toward the coffee machine, grumbling under her breath. Jason grabbed a rag and started wiping tables, his movements stiff and angry. Richard gave Megan a small, knowing nod. "I've got a feeling you're going to be just fine here." Megan exhaled slowly, watching the place settle into a new normal, a normal where she was in charge. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt something new: respect. The next few weeks were interesting. Megan had expected pushback, and she got it. Beth barely spoke to her, unless she absolutely had to. The usual smirks were gone, replaced with cold silence. Jason sulked through every shift, making it obvious he was only still there because he had nowhere else to go. A few of the other servers, the ones who had followed the old toxic habits, tried to adjust. Some didn't. A couple quit during the first week. No notice. They just walked out. When it became clear the old ways were done, Megan didn't lose sleep over it. She wasn't there to make friends. She was there to make things right. She spent her first days as manager watching, paying attention to who was actually doing the work, who was resisting change, and who just needed guidance. And slowly, things started to shift. The kitchen crew, who used to stay quiet, began speaking up, offering suggestions, pointing out when things were unfair. The younger servers, who once looked up to Beth and Jason, now looked to Megan instead. One night, a busboy named Noah, a college kid working nights to pay tuition, stopped her as she wiped down the counter. "You really fired Tom over that?" he asked carefully. Megan looked up. "Over what?" "For being rude to customers," Noah said. "I mean, we all saw it happen, but I didn't think anyone actually cared." Megan set down the rag and looked him in the eye. "I care." Noah nodded. "Good." And just like that, something shifted again. It wasn't overnight, but bit by bit, the energy inside Lancaster Grill changed. Customers noticed. People who used to be ignored started coming back. They smiled when they saw Megan behind the counter. Regulars who barely spoke now made conversation, tipped more, stayed longer. Even the staff, the ones who had doubted her, started to follow her lead. Then one afternoon, Richard Lawson walked in. Megan was busy balancing the invoices when she heard his voice. "How's my investment doing?" She looked up, pushed the paperwork aside, and smirked. "I think we're in good shape." Richard looked around. The restaurant was full, not just with customers, but with a new kind of energy. The staff moved with focus. The air felt lighter. That old tension, it was gone. Richard nodded, clearly pleased. "Told you you'd be fine." Megan leaned on the counter. "You didn't exactly give me a choice." Richard chuckled. "No, I didn't." Megan took a breath and looked around. "It's funny," she said. "For the longest time, this job was just that, a job, a paycheck." She paused. "But now it's something more." Richard's expression softened. "Life's funny like that, huh?" Megan thought back to that morning, sitting in her car, feeling like she'd lost everything. And now here she was, not just a waitress, not just an employee. She was the boss, and she had made damn sure Lancaster Grill would never go back to the way it was. because doing the right thing isn't always easy. Sometimes it costs you everything, but sometimes it gives you more than you ever imagined. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because respect matters. And it all starts with how we treat each other.